And he would ask them about their day, and what they did for work, and about their families, and who do they need to call on the phone, and how much did they pay? And then he would see if he could help them save some money on their bill. At the end of the day, he would pack up his table and come home, and I would help him count all the forms. He would show me a little demo of a fiber optic cable that when you push the button, the fibers would all light up. And he would explain, that's your data traveling through the cable, and how it was better than copper because there's no electromagnetic interference. And he would teach me about things like the Sherman Antitrust Act and the breakup of Ma Bell. Jim loved people, and he loved all of these side jobs just for the opportunity to meet and help them. He didn't do it because he cared about making money or closing deals. He was just happy to be there, talking to you, maybe helping you out in some small way. That's really the best kind of salesman, isn't it? If he was here today, I'm very sure he would be outside in the parking lot after the reception, showing you a product that you could wash your car without a single drop of water. When I was older and it came time for me to pick a college, to my dad this was an obvious choice. You need to go to college, and the greatest city on earth, Athens, Ohio, has a college. Of course, he didn't say this directly. He very dutifully helped me fill out applications to all of the not Ohio universities. And he took me to tour all of the not Ohio University campuses. But then it came time to go down to Athens, and before we even left, just getting packed for the trip, you could see how excited he was. When we got down there, he dragged me to see every spot he remembered from his youth. He would say, this is Clippinger. This is the physics building, where I took all of my classes. And this is the building where your great uncle Daryl was an English professor, and he would stand on his desk and recite Shakespeare to his students. Did you know that? Yeah, I did. He told me. 100 times. And this is Alden Library, and it was open 24 hours, so you could just come in the middle of the night and study if you wanted. And this is the house on Franklin Street that my your great-grandfather owned. And he was a carpenter. And this house used to just be one story, and he and his friends raised it up and built a second story underneath it. Did you know that? Yeah, I knew that. And this is the grocery store on Stimson Avenue, where your grandmother parked the car one day, and the clutch slipped, and the car started rolling down the parking lot. And the bag boy had to run out and chase it down so it wouldn't roll into the street. And someone from the Athens News came and wrote a story about it, and she got her picture in the paper. Did you know that? Yeah, I knew that. And this is the Taco Bell, where your grandmother and your grandmother first met. Of course, it was the 1930s, and it wasn't a Taco Bell then. It was a Woolworths. And your grandmother was a candy girl, and she worked at the counter. And your grandfather came in one day and saw her, and he developed a sweet tooth. And he would come in every day, and he would buy a piece of candy. And then one day he asked her out on a date, and then they got married. And so if it wasn't for this Taco Bell, you wouldn't even exist. Did you know that? Yeah, Dad, I knew that too. After a few years later, I had graduated from college, and I was out of the house. My mom's mom, Grandma Laney, came to live with my parents. Her health was failing, and she had moved into my old room while my parents cared for her in her final days. Jim cared for her like she was his own mother. He would drive to the Cheesecake Factory every day and get her a slice of cake when that was all that she could stomach. The nurse who came to the house to do checkups said that normally you could tell which spouse it is whose parent you're looking at after, but in this case she couldn't tell. And very early one morning, I got a call from my parents, and it was my mom, and she said that my grandmother had died. And my dad said that he was up with her in the night when she passed. And as he said that, his voice cracked. This memory has always stood out to me for two reasons. One is that it's the only time I can remember hearing my dad cry. And also, it was that he was someone who always genuinely wanted to help. He never did it out of duty, or to be a hero, or to aggrandize himself. He simply wanted the best for the people that he loved. and thinking of my dad there in that room in the middle of the night with my grandmother, that same room that he soothed me to bed at night when I was a kid, I thought there could be no more characteristic image of my dad than to think of him in those dark, quiet times, humbly giving somebody the love that he deserved. This image of caretaking was present my entire life. From the very beginning, when I was a baby and my dad's mother, my grandma Marsh, came to live with us in her final years. And for my dad himself, when I was very young and his leukemia had recurred, and my mom had to give him shots at home. I have a very early memory of looking up at my dad sitting on the bed while my mom gave him a shot and then disposed of it in the red medical waste basket that was kept at the nightstand. I didn't understand the significance of this image at the time, but there's a reason why it has stayed with me so sharply all of these years. And more recently, when again he was having health problems, and my mother did more to care for him than anyone could ever ask of themselves. He knew what my grandmothers knew, and what I, my sisters, and all of the cousins and grandcousins and childhood friends who came into our home knew. That when you are in the Marsh house under the care of Jim and Kathy, you are very well taken care of. My wife and I were very happy to welcome our own son into the world recently. Arthur James Marsh was born just 6 weeks ago, and I'm so grateful that he was able to meet his grandfather. Dad was so good with babies. As I was looking through old photos to share today, it seemed like every other picture I found of him was one of him at a wedding or a family reunion with a baby slung over his shoulder and a big smile on his face. I regret that he couldn't have had more time with Ari. I know he would have loved it, but I am grateful for the time that he did have. And I somehow cannot feel sorry for Ari, because I know that he will miss nothing of his grandfather. I will be sure to read him all the same stories that my dad read to me, and I will sing him all the same songs. I will teach him all the same lessons. I will teach him about the relative merits of fiber optic cable and about Mobius strips in about 1960s Berlin. And I will do my best to set just a small fraction of the example that my dad set for me. And if someday when he is older, he makes the mistake of saying that he never met his grandfather, I will very quickly correct him. Oh no, you did. You were just a baby, you may not remember that you did meet him. And he would sit at home and ask your grandmother, I wonder what little Arthur James is doing right now. And we would send him pictures of you, and we had video calls. He would say hello to you, and he heard your little cries, and you made him so happy. And he loved you very much. Jim Marsh was a very special man. We are all going to miss him very much. And we are here today to mourn our loss. We are also here today to celebrate his life. And what a beautiful life it is to celebrate. He was such a great guy. Jim was so many things. A son, a brother, a husband, a student and a teacher, a caregiver, a patient, a salesman, an entrepreneur, a veteran. And more than that, he was always the very best version of those things. But to me and my sisters, he was Dad. And if there was just one thing I would want to share with all of you today, it's how lucky I feel to be able to say that. In a moment, we would like to invite all of you to come up here and share your own memories of Jim. Before that, I'd like to invite you to join me all in a moment of silence, to think of somebody who was very special in your life, someone who cared for you and who loved you and who wanted the best for you. Maybe that person is Jim. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe that person is gone. Maybe they're still here with you. But let's all just take 30 seconds to think and remember that person. I'll count the time. how grateful that person must be to know that you thought of them in your quiet time. Thank you all for coming today to honor the life of James Marsh. I'd like to invite you all up to share your own stories of him. I know that he meant a lot of different people, and I'm very eager to hear them. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. That was beautiful, and thank you for inviting us all for those 30 seconds. I have to tell you, I know who I thought about. That was just a nice gesture, moment as we all sit here and think about him today too. So at this time, I would and like first to invite up John Mark to say a few words first.
I was going to say, I feel very presidential moving my mask like that. Kathy, Rita, Steve, Linda, Justin, Susan, and family. We're deeply saddened by Jim's passing, knowing you all be in our thoughts and prayers for the weeks to come. I rehearsed this earlier today and I did a better job, but anyway. I'm John Mark, Jim Marsh, and I and two other assembled here, Dan Clark and Tim Fitzpatrick, are part of a very prestigious group. At least we're told that anyway. We're married to the Four Laney sisters, and we are affectionately referred to as the Outlaws. To begin, I always marveled at Jim's wonderful mind. He was a consummate reader and listener, and who was conversant on many topics. But his favorite was politics. I have been told by very high sources that Jim Marsh single-handedly willed Joe Biden's presidential victory. And Jim wanted to know that. Jim also had courage and conviction. Everything he put his mind to, whether it was his military service, his career as an accountant, his co-parenting, his several entrepreneurial ventures, he excelled at. I once asked Jim what he did in the Army when he was stationed in Germany. He said, well, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. Even his legendary car purchase negotiations, his counting cards at family reunion poker games, which he usually won, by the way, his Christmas Eve bargain shopping, and finally his detective work to find the only remaining stash of Baskin-Robbins lemon custard ice cream in northeastern Ohio. Impressed the heck out of me. Jim had a dry sense of humor, but he was also a fun seeker. When fun was advertised, Jim was all over it. His children's sporting events, one-tank trips, travels to Germany, sitting for timeshare presentations, going to concert, hot air balloons, amusement park, ocean beaches, bowling, golf. And at the very last minute, quick, do we need more potato chips and popsicles for the party? I could go on, but on behalf of my kids, he was their favorite uncle. These are the memories and more that I want to hold on to. He was a remarkable human being. as many have said, a wonderful father, a husband, grandfather, brother, brother-in-law, uncle, cousin, and most notably, a friend to all. We love you, Jim. Rest in peace, dear friend. Thank you.
Thank you, John. At this time, I'd like to invite someone else who may want to come up and speak, and although John said it, he may have even had it rehearsed, it's still gonna be hard because today you're reflecting on all these memories, Jim. Someone else would like to come up and speak? Sure.
Well, this is gonna be short, but it's hard to say just a few words about Jim, and how he impacted our family and everyone who he came into contact with. I was looking at the pictures in the slideshow, and you can really see what a great dad he was, what a perfect husband he was, a devoted son to his parents, a devoted son-in-law to my mom, a great brother and cousin and father-in-law and uncle, and he was the perfect brother-in-law. We were talking last night about how kind Jim was, and I never saw him lose his temper. I never saw him in a bad mood. He got mad at me once because I insisted on us taking all the kids to see Austin Powers movie. And he thought it was inappropriate for kids that age. And he like didn't speak to me for 5 minutes. And that was pretty much the extent of Jim being mad at you. His kindness combined with his wicked sense of humor always was surprising. I mean, it was as kind and loving as he was, some of the things that came out of his mouth were just a shock. Because his sense of humor was so funny, and I think it was just that he saw humor in everything and found joy in everything. He was really good to my mom. And he was so passionate about politics and the causes that he felt so strongly about. So many of my memories of Jim are as of the two of us standing in somebody's kitchen and talking for hours about one election or another, or an election coming up, or an election that just happened. Oh, and the time that he almost got into a fist fight with some guy at the DNC, the guy was protesting outside the DNC, and Jim was incensed by what this guy was saying, and he went after him. And Kathy was holding him back, and I was cheering him on. I think it's pretty clear that, not just in our family, but everyone who ever met Jim, this is a huge loss, and we're gonna just miss him so much.
Is there anyone else who might want to share a few words? Make sure you can hear me okay, John, that does feel very presidential. Based off of everything I've heard today, between his son and the outlaws and his sister-in-law, I just feel that in this room, there's just a legacy that's being left. And so I want to read to you the marks we leave. As time goes on and we can reflect on the things we've said and done, the places we've been, the people we've met, and we think of all the fun. We realize that the marks we leave in life are the ones made of stone and steel, but rather of the lives we've touched and how we make folks feel. For people are far more valuable than the achievements great and high, than cars and planes or space shuttles or buildings reaching to the sky. You and I can leave our mark in life by doing all we can to serve and praise and uplift the lives of children, women, and man. I'd like to thank all of you again for being here today, helping to not only mourn, but celebrate the life of Jim, the husband, the father, grandfather, the brother, the outlaw, I really love that. And most certainly the friend, as he is a friend and cousin to all of you. So thank you all again for being here. The family does invite everyone down to our lower level for some food and fellowship, certainly with a little bit of social distancing. But please, if you'd like to join us, we'll invite, starting from the side, you're welcome to pass by as Earn one last time, or you can go directly down. It's in our lower level. Again, just fill that room with these memories, with this laughter. I know we have some of these witty stories to share, so I'd love to hear them. So thank you all again.